Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm here with Danni today. Danni, you want to unmute and say hi?
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
And Colleen is teaching Reiki 1 and 2, so she will not be here today. She'll be joining us next week. Just a few announcements. We are actually full in our Animal Reiki 1 and 2 this week, which starts Wednesday. This will be released Thursday. But if you are already an Animal Reiki 1 and 2 practitioner, we do have a few spots left in our Animal Reiki Masterclass, which starts this Friday. What the heck is the date this Friday? It is the 18th. Thank you. The 18th. And so that's the 18th through the 20th. So it's this weekend. And we would love to have you join. You can sign up at ReikiLifestyle.com. If you are kind of late to the game and let's say you see this Thursday afternoon and want to join, you can always also email us, Colleen at ReikiLifestyle.com, and we will help to get on the roster. Then the other thing is that we do have our podcast Q&A next Wednesday. That is at 9 a.m. Pacific. So it is a little bit of a different time than our distance Reiki shares. And those are just, kind of where we come in as a group. They're usually a bit smaller than this format, but we come in as a group and you can ask any Reiki questions. We have discussions about different Reiki subjects. It does end up being also just about spiritual topics. We talk anything from what is Reiki, very beginning Reiki questions, to very experienced Reiki teachers that have questions, things about business, things about Reiki in general. So it's really fun. You are also able to submit your questions and email your questions. Generally speaking, though, we end up kind of running out of time for those because we do answer in order of kind of priority for those that are live there on the call. You can go to Reiki Lifestyle, the podcast tab, and you can sign up for that list and you will get the Zoom link. We don't make the Zoom link public for security reasons, but you can go and get the Zoom link to join us for that live. And then, of course, we always do publish it on our podcast and our YouTube channels. So also know you can come and ask your questions completely anonymously and confidentially. So we explain that once we're on the Zoom meeting. So you don't have to come and ask your questions live. Some people are comfortable with that, some aren't. But we do have ways to keep your questions and your comments and things like that anonymously, so we can just ask them on the episode. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I don't think we've said this in a while about this distance Reiki share. If you're listening later, maybe on YouTube or on our podcast channels, and you have interest in joining us live here on this distance Reiki share, it's every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. You do have to be signed up for that as well to get the Zoom links. You don't get them if you're only signed up for our main list. You have to sign up specifically for this because people on our main list weren't loving getting an email for the Zoom link every single week. And the reason that we have to do that, again, is to keep those Zoom links private, because otherwise you get things like Zoom bombers if we make them public. So, but you are welcome to come. It's very casual, all lineages, all experience levels. So even if you're not attuned to Reiki, you're welcome to come. People join us at work all the time. There's a lot of people that join us at work. You can just keep your video and audio off. You don't have to turn your video on. And then you're also welcome to come late and leave early. Just be here as you need to be. We try to make it pretty accessible to all. We try to make it easy. And because we're here to experience Reiki, we try to make it as stress-free as possible, because that is one of the basic things about Reiki, is that it's a stress reduction technique, right? It's a relaxation technique. And so we do try to keep it as stress-free as possible. So again, you can go to ReikiLifestyle.com and sign up for that list. All right. I think those are the announcements, right, Danni?
Yeah. Did you want to mention the Sedona retreat?
Oh, yeah. Well, we will be going to Sedona in a couple weeks. The International Reiki Retreat is Sedona, September 1st through 4th. It's over Labor Day weekend. I do know that they have some spots left. So you can go to reikiclasses.com/retreats and find out more for that. Colleen and I are presenting about animal Reiki. She's also doing the gratitude ceremony live, which is just a really beautiful experience. It's amazing. The grounds are amazing. Everything about it is amazing. And we'll be going to Sedona a little bit early because we just love being in Sedona. It's awesome. So again, you can go to reikiclasses.com to find out more information about that. All right. I think that is good for the announcements. Thank you all so much for being here, for listening later. We just appreciate our community and all of you so much. So as most of you know, the format of this at this point is that we talk a little bit about a Reiki topic. We do a meditation or a Reiki guided journey, and then we go into breakout rooms where we give and receive Reiki with each other. And also we do some group Reiki at the end where we send to our community members, family, friends, each other, different world events, things like that, where we will be sending to the different things going on. I know today we'll definitely spend some time sending to Maui and everything that's going on there. If you didn't see, I know some of you had emailed us asking about the Maui Center or the Reiki Center in Maui, William Rand's house, and it's on the other side of the island. So him and the Reiki Center are safe there. But I know we will definitely be spending some time and sending Reiki to them and the people, the plants, the land, and everything else there. So lots of love to everybody that is going through that experience. And, we'll just send distance Reiki out. So any of you that kind of want to add your intentions to be included in that group Reiki here now, you can just send your intentions and we will include your intentions in that group Reiki later. And know through distance Reiki that is that they will be added. Reiki is an intelligent energy. It knows where to go and what to do. We can, through distance Reiki, the distance symbol, we can send it backwards and forwards. It's a very multidimensional symbol. And so you can send it into the group Reiki. When we're in that group Reiki, we will send it back also to include everybody that put their intentions in here and right now. Also, if you're listening to this or watching it later, we will also use that distance symbol later to include your intentions and include you into the group Reiki that we will be doing at the end of the share. So that is one thing to know, and this isn't the topic for today, but it's definitely, relevant, right? It is one thing to know about that distance Reiki. And if you're not attuned to the distance Reiki symbol, that's okay. Or if you're not attuned to distance Reiki, that's okay. You can send Reiki with your intentions. You can send prayers. You can send, just ask that even if you're not attuned to any Reiki, you can just ask that Reiki goes to the people there, and to the land and to the animals, to the situation. Because again, that intention also really is important. The prayers can be felt by the people. The just adding to those higher vibrations so that people can feel that love and that light. Again, Reiki knows where to go and what to do. We do have the World Peace Grid tomorrow as well. So if you do have a crystal grid, a Reiki grid of any sort, you can add the situation, you can add the people, the land, the animals, everything into your grid to send continuous Reiki, to send continuous energy to everything there in Maui. in Lahaina. So, and I know other places in Maui are affected as well. So anyways, also the other thing to know is that Reiki never does harm. And so if there are people there or things there that doesn't want to receive Reiki, they won't receive Reiki. So Reiki knows that, and it might send to the situation, might help in that way, but it won't be received by anybody who doesn't want to receive. And so that's why just even sending Reiki to the situation can be really helpful, because the people that do want to receive will receive it, and the people that don't won't. And then at the same time, for those people that don't, it still can help that kind of field of light around the situation break through that density that they are experiencing right now. So just a little bit about how that can work with distance Reiki and how that can be helpful for people. And we definitely know, having experienced sending to different situations, world events, having needed it for ourselves through different situations, and especially, I've been evacuated for wildfires multiple times. And knowing that I can feel it when we send it, it helps the situation. People that we know can feel it when it's sent by other people. It's just even a moment of light, and that really matters. That really helps when you're going through these circumstances, and there's a level of density, a level of stress that is blanketed in the whole area and the whole situation. And also having heard just so many different stories about feeling that light, or kind of some of the miraculous things that have happened in hard situations with people who are really intensely sending Reiki to that people or those situations. So anyway, just wanted to add that in, and lots of love to everybody affected there. And it's interesting actually, because today's subject is, I don't want to say seemingly unrelated, because it's all related when we're talking about these subjects, because it's our practices, it's our practice. Some of us here have a business. It's part of our business, and as well as our personal practice. But what the kind of agenda to talk about today was talk about spirit guides. And we talked about spirit guides back in March, and more along the lines of what are spirit guides. So if that's a question you have, you want to know more about that, you can go to our YouTube or our podcast and find that video. I think it's called What Are Spirit Guides? I think that's the title. So usually you can search on our channels, and that will find that episode for you. So what we wanted to talk about today, because what we'll be talking about in the over this next period of time, and what we talked about last week, are different topics that are really big kind of questions or practices when we're talking about Reiki practices, and when we're talking about spiritual practices in general. So it's escaping me what we talked about last week in this moment. But we wanted to kind of talk about ancestral healing, past lives. We had talked in July about, different spiritual lingo. These were some of the things that came up, but we wanted to go more in depth with it, as opposed to just talking about in the context of spiritual lingo. So you can go to that video if you have more questions about what are spirit guides. And we also did a guided meditation, or guided journey actually, in that time, about to find a spirit guide for you. So you can be guided in that and find your spirit guide, or an additional spirit guide, or just commune with the spirit guides that you might already have. So within Reiki, we are using the Reiki energy. Many of us have Reiki guides, might be a different name that we call us. Some of them have spirit guides. So in the context to what I was talking about before, is that many times we have spirit guides that help us to do some of this work for us. In some modalities, they kind of exclusively do the work for you, and you have different kinds of spirit guides, or different spirit guides that do the different functions for you. in Reiki, and we combine with Reiki here, and we do some of this work that combine other modalities here. One of our main practices is combining Reiki and shamanic practices. Colleen is really extensively trained in shamanism, and I am also trained in shamanism, not as much as her, but trained in shamanism. And so, we do combine some of those practices together. And they can also be called allies in some modalities. One of the things that we are always doing is we are always utilizing the Reiki energy. The Reiki energy is always flowing through us when we're doing this work, even when we're combining it with other modalities, other practices. Many of you have do this with your different modalities. I know many people combine Reiki with sound healing, Reiki with yoga, Reiki, all of these different things that we have interest in, callings to, experience in, and training in. And so when we're talking about spirit guides, they can have different names. They can have Reiki guides. They can have spirit guides. They can have allies. I know there's a few other names that I am not mentioning them, but they can have other names as well. When we work with spirit guides and in the training that we do in spirit guides and working with them in our advanced training classes like Next Step Reiki and Explore the 12 Heavens, we are using the Reiki energy to still do the work. And in other modalities, it could be just the ally or the spirit guide is doing the work exclusively. So there's just different ways, and there's not any sort of hierarchical. It's just an understanding that there's different ways of doing this work and different ways of training around it. With Colleen and I and Danni, and how we teach and know about it, and many people that are in this circle, we are combining the two. So we are using the Reiki energy to commune with our spirit guides or our Reiki guides. And we are having the Reiki energy do the healing work. So the spirit guides might be there helping us, but the Reiki energy is still doing all of the healing work. And I'll use some examples to kind of explain further what we mean, or what I mean. And so one of the things that we always are doing is using Reiki energy, running Reiki energy as the backbone of all of the work that we do, even when we combine it with other modalities. And there is, what we like about that is that Reiki energy, like I said, does the work for us. So it doesn't have to come from our own life force energy. It doesn't have to come from, it's honestly, to us, it feels like there's kind of a relief in that, because it just takes care of it for us. It goes into the light of Reiki where it's healed, where the light of Reiki carries it into the highest sources of consciousness, love, light, however you define that for you. And so it kind of handles it for us. On top of it, what Reiki energy is always naturally doing, whether you combine it with other modalities or not, because some people don't. Some people just use Reiki energy, and you might even be like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I just use Reiki energy. It's a stress reduction and relaxation technique. The good thing about that is whether or not you combine it with other modalities or not, the Reiki energy is still doing this work. And through the relaxation techniques, through the stress reduction techniques, it's still healing. And the other thing that I love about Reiki energy is, while it might be healing these things, it's also empowering. So it's like, you think of it as like you're digging out the hole, right? And you're getting the dirt out of the hole. But then Reiki energy, so there's not just a hole left, Reiki energy comes and fills that hole as well. So we always say it's not just healing, but it's also revealing. It's revealing more and more of your true self, your authentic self, your inner truth, all of these deeper parts of you before any of those injuries or layers covered you. And so the Reiki energy is doing that. Just naturally. It's just natural what it does. And it, definitely helps with that empowerment of you. But also, having said that, we do also like to combine it with other things. And so Reiki energy can be used in conjunction with spirit guides, and spirit guides help to also do this work for you and help you with this work. It may be for others, it may just be for yourself. It might just be for guidance, because sometimes it's easier to kind of hear it from this outside enlightened being than it is from our own perspective. Many of us know that a lot of times it is easier to hear things from another perspective than ourselves. So spirit guides have a lot of different types of who you might work with. You might work with angels. You might work with ascended masters. You might work with animals, like spirit animals. You might work with, there's a lot of different things that I could name. It can be infinite. So they can take any of those forms. On a deeper level too, one of the things that can be really helpful is having spirit guides help you do this work. Again, it gets to be choice on whether or not you want to have spirit guides in your Reiki practice, and whether or not you want to have spirit guides help you do any of the work. So just as an example of all of that, you might have an animal help with guidance with different things. Many people might call this a power animal. It might be a divine animal, kingdom animal, so a spirit animal. One of the things that I also like about Reiki is that because it's an enlightened energy, I always know that the guides that I'm working with, the guides that come through, are enlightened beings. They are always of that kind of non-dual enlightened realm. And so it just gives me a really, deep level of trust with all of this work that I do. So you might have an animal that helps you with different things. Let's say you have a horse as a spirit animal. You can call on the horse for different types of guidance. I find that horses, if it is a horse, just as an example, anytime that they might show up in the physical world, it is whether or not you're actually seeing it or being with a horse, or there's just this horse symbolism that continues to show up for you. It lets you know that, maybe the horse is trying to talk to you about the different qualities that horse possesses. And so helping you in that guidance in your life right when you need it. So that's an example of how a spirit animal might be helpful for you. And it doesn't have to be something. It could be a bear, like something that you're not going to see very often, in your life. I mean, maybe a few of us, but a lot of us are not going to see a bear, hopefully, out when we're in nature. So that might be a better example. But you have a bear show up in a picture, a bear come through in all different ways. You might be in self Reiki and a bear comes through, and it's letting you know that there is something that this bear is trying to help you with, guide you with, that kind of thing. And then many of us work with angels. So there's a lot of people that have different angels as guides. You might work with Michael as a protector. I know there's another big one that's a big protector. So you might work with Michael as a protector. There's so many different kinds of angels, and many of you have practice with angels, or maybe it's just a general angels, and they help with just that love energy. They can show up in numbers. Let's say, I know there's angel numbers. Maybe you have oracle cards that you draw, and these are your guides trying to help you with different aspects of your life. And then, you might have ascended masters. So Jesus, Kuan Yin, there's, so many different Mary, there's so many different ascended masters, Kali, that are from different spiritual modalities, religions that have been here. Maybe they've been here on the earth, and they are just these really high level beings that help you with different, just in your life, or maybe they show up at different times again to help with that guidance. So when we're talking about different subjects, about different types of healing, we can have guides that are just our guides for one purpose. And then we can have a guide that is somebody that we connect to every single time, in every single Reiki session, or when we're doing our spiritual practices. And so it's just this, okay, I have, and Michael is my spirit guide, is my angel guide. And so I work with him all the time for all different purposes. And then at other times, we might have different types of guides for different reasons. So for an example, we might have an ancestor. Maybe it's an ancestor that was actually related to us. Maybe it's more of a proverbial ancestor that's going to help us do ancestral healing. And when we talk about ancestral healing, we're going to go deeper into it. But when we talk about ancestral healing, it could be your lineage, or it could be more of the proverbial ancestors. And helping with healing with that. And so you might have a specific ancestor that comes through, and you either are making the choice to do ancestral healing work with them, or the ancestor comes through and it kind of gives you this indication that, oh, okay, as I'm working with fear here today in my life, and I'm not sure what is causing this fear or this block. Okay, this ancestor is going to come through, and it gives me this indication that ancestral healing is needed, and that I am, whatever is causing this fear is here in this lifetime, is maybe not from this lifetime, maybe it's from something in my lineage, something in the past, and I need to go back to heal that and bring it forward in my life today. The same with past lives. Now, it may not be an ancestor that helps you with this. Recently, in a session, there was, my client had some past life healing to do, and Mary Magdalene came through this past life. Now, it wasn't ancestral healing, but there was past life healing that needed to take place, and Mary Magdalene came through to help with that past life healing. And so again, there's not a relational genetic component there. It was a completely different life, and it's in her soul's history. And Mary Magdalene came through to help with that. And so I wouldn't say that Mary Magdalene is a guide of mine. Maybe it is a guide of hers. That's possible. We didn't really go into that into a deeper level. Sometimes you just have these beings that will come through to help with that one thing. Other times you're going to work with them consistently. Like, so if I have a certain subject come up, ancestral healing, let's say, I have an specific ancestral enlightened ancestor that comes through to help me do that work. Or in this case of Mary Magdalene, she just came through to help me in that specific past life for that specific client. And again, how this is working with Reiki energy is this is still in a Reiki session. I'm still using my surrogate. Reiki energy is still doing the work. So even though she's coming in to help this guidance, to give me an indication of what the past life was, maybe even where it was, sometimes you get details, other times you don't. It is what is happening there is the Reiki energy, and Mary Magdalene is using the Reiki energy, which is just kind of a part of who she is, right? She's an enlightened being of who she is. And that entire Reiki energy in her is doing the work. So it's doing the healing that needs to occur from that past life in order to help her in this lifetime. So it's lifting it into the light and healing it from, back before the origination and all the way forward. So it's healing that injury, whatever that injury is, and sending it into the light where it's to be listened to, healed, and heard. And then it's also filling. So it's also empowering whatever the gift and talent is from that lifetime, whatever those gifts and talents are, maybe even from Mary Magdalene, what she represents, what are the gifts from there. So she is helping me with an indication, and then her and the Reiki energy are doing the work for me so that the work's not coming from me. It's coming from the light. It's coming from the sources of pure love, and it's going back into the light where it's to be transmuted. So it's all through the Reiki energy. And again, you might not work in this capacity and just know that, this work is kind of still happening through Reiki energy, whether we are observing it or not. A couple other of examples is the different ways that spirit guides may come through is at one point, it's cute. Sue got me this surrogate because I have a few stories with bats with my Joe put in the thing. Happy looking surrogate. Sue got me this. Sue Strong, who's you might be here, Sue, I'm not sure. But she, is one of the authors of the Animal Reiki, and I have a few stories with bats and my cat. So she got me this as a joke. So anyways, one of the examples that I always use when we're talking about spirit guides is that Colleen works with Jesus as a spirit guide. And they do a lot of work together. I would say that Jesus it's not one of my main spirit guides. I kind of work with other beings, other types of beings, sometimes just directly the Reiki energy. Sometimes it is more like sacred geometry, some of those kinds of things. But at one point when we were talking about spirit release, she said, Jesus does this work really, really well. Why don't you try calling him in and asking if he'll help you with this work? And so that was a really interesting concept for several reasons. First of all, in that case, I got to also make the choice, right? I can ask him, can you come in the session, show me how you do the work, help me with this work, and help me be a guide for me during this work. I wanted to check it out first, mostly to see if it was a match for me and how I practice and the way that I practice and listening to my guidance in there. But, Colleen is my mentor. And so, of course, I'm going to always, listen to her guidance and suggestions around this. And so in this case, this was a place that I made a choice as somebody that is a spirit guide. And also Jesus comes in sometimes for other people in their sessions who are really, really connected to him. And that is a very big piece of their practice, or they want that relationship again, that reconnection of that relationship again, that may have been a little disconnected through religious wounding. So I said, sure, I'm going to try it. And so the next session that I had that needed some spirit release, I asked him to come in and I said, can you come in, help me with this work, show me how you do this work. And so I can observe and see. And so he did, and he came in and he did this work. And the way that Jesus does spirit release is really, really beautiful. And he just kind of takes care of it for you with the Reiki energy. He's coming through on that enlightened energy. He sends it or takes it. Sometimes it's hard to explain how it all works. I'm not exactly sure how to explain how it all works. But I know that it's on the backbone of Reiki energy, and he is the Reiki energy. He's working with the Reiki energy. And so it goes into the light of Reiki energy where that spirit, spirit attachment is then healed and listened to and heard and transmuted. And so from that point on, now, while I don't work with Jesus in other capacities, I work with him in spirit release, spirit attachment. And I always know that I can trust anything that I come across in a session because I have that spirit guide to help me with that work. And the one thing to know about enlightened spirits is that they never get upset. Like Jesus isn't upset that I work with him in that capacity and not other capacities. Like he's not, I don't understand why you don't, work with me in all capacities. They're enlightened. They don't have that duality that we may have here on this planet. And that is one way to know an indication about that duality. And then another example of this is one of a spirit guide that I work with quite commonly, because it's kind of more within my language and realm of how I connect to what we all call as the oneness, is actually Ram Dass. And so what I love about him when he either comes through or I'm asking him to come through is he's really good about teaching me about being human and that connection of like human emotions, humanity in general, connecting to the higher consciousness, the oneness while we are in this human presence. And this physical plane, this physical body. And he has such beautiful messages about that connection, about how to move through this physical space that we live in that sometimes can be really challenging in understanding. And especially coming from that enlightened perspective is really, really helpful. I mean, he had an enlightened perspective here on the planet, and he has an enlightened perspective in the enlightened realms. And actually, what's funny about that is he came through for a client, which I'm actually really glad that he came through for a client, because what he's also taught me in general is about our belief system about what a spirit guide needs to be. And I know that he's an enlightened guide because there's no duality within him around the perspective of either being human or also, again, that perspective of not having any, jealousy, having any, why haven't you worked with me in a while? Those kinds of things. And also teaching me that I might not, if he came through for myself, I might not have believed that it was possible that somebody that passed so recently could be a spirit guide, also being in human form, which is so silly because, of course, that can happen. We think of spirit guides as either being animals or these people that have lived, a long time ago. But spirit guides can be, people that are recent. They can be people from the future, maybe. I know descendants can be spirit guides as well. So just releasing that kind of idea about guides needing to be a certain, we frame them in a certain way. And so that actually also taught me a lot about being human and our kind of human belief system about the way it all works. And so there are just these different it's such a dry word to use, but functions that different spirit guides can have. And at the same time, you can just maybe even have one spirit guide that helps with guidance in all of the different work that you might do. Or maybe you don't have a practice that looks that way. Maybe you just ask them to come in and be a support for you during your self-Reiki sessions. And again, they can be people that or they can be beings that showed up kind of randomly, or they can be somebody that you asked and chose to work with and say, hey, can you come do this work with me? Or can you be my spirit guide? Both things are okay to do. And so, with your Reiki on and self-Reiki, maybe some guided meditations, you can ask for these beings to come through, or in the example like Jesus, you can, say, hey, will you come do this work with me? Show me how you do this work. Help me to do this work, and just allow that guidance and allow them and it to show you how it all works and how it all works through the Reiki energy. Danni, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this? I think I saw you put a comment in the chat, but it's
yeah, no, you covered it all. I was just kind of covering chat. It's kind of different today, so it's kind of different to keep up with everyone. No, I agree with everything you said. And for me, I use different spirit guides for different things. And you might have said it, so sorry if I'm repeating you. But I mean, sometimes I'll call in my grandmother because she works so well with animals. So I'll call in her. And then other times I'll call in, archangels. And sometimes I call in people I don't even know. Like I don't have a religious past, but sometimes like they'll come in, I'm like, I don't know who that is. And then it'd be really interesting because of my session, they'll be like, oh, I'm holding my rosary beads. And I would have it's like really interesting what just happens to come in. But I always ask. And sometimes I just say Reiki guides. It doesn't have to be a certain guide. And I'll just be, okay, Reiki, especially when I first started, because I didn't really know. I met a lot of my guides through Reiki journeys and through Reiki sessions and stuff like that. But before I knew any of my spirit guides, I would just be Reiki guides. Do kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And your different examples are always helpful too, because, and like I said, with the client with Ram Dass, it came through for her first. And then I was like, and then he was like, no, I'm also here for you, and have learned how to work with him, and what he helps me with personally, it might be different for somebody else too. So yeah, I love that. And I love the idea that your grandmother helps you with animals, so it's like, it can also be, it's not an animal helping you with animals, although I'm sure you have that too, but it is some like, an enlightened one.
Yes, she definitely related to animal communication. So I'm like, okay, Abuelita, what do you say here? And so she comes in. So, and also, if you don't have one, it's okay. I mean, there might be sometimes I'll be like, just give me a sign, make it kind of fun. And I'll be like, give me a sign. So all of a sudden I'll see like owls everywhere, or bears, like you say. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. Or I'll pull a card, like you said, and it will be like a rhino. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And then I'll be behind a car and they'll have a rhino sticker on the back of it. So it can be really fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's so true. And then also, Taylor, I saw your new moon Reiki share, and I happen to know that I know you work with planets, and people can work with planets, so it doesn't have to be a being either. Like I said, there's times where sacred geometry is teaching me about things, and that's a guide. So just really expanding your idea to the infinite possibilities. Could be a river, it could be water. Like there are so many infinite possibilities that they can be. It can ebb and flow too, no pun intended with the water. They can change. They can be a part of your life for a certain period of time, what you needed in that period of time. And then, maybe when you're through that period of time, they're always going to be a part of your heart, right? They're always going to be a part, or if you need them for certain things, but sometimes they kind of will fade a little bit more into the background. Like I know when we were writing the Animal Reiki manual, Jaguar was really, really present for me in helping with that work. And now, while I know Jaguar is always there and a part of the Animal Reiki, I'm not working with Jaguar as much as I was in that time period. So yeah, Kelly put the galactic guides. Oh, and Christine, happy birthday, Yusui Sensei. So it's today's the 15th. I know for those of you listening later, it'll be not his birthday anymore, but today is August 15th, and it's Yusui Sensei's birthday. Speaking of guides, speaking of teachers and ancestors, that's another one. And so, yeah, of course, happy birthday to him.